From Motionsoft's corporate office in Rockville, Maryland, welcome and thank you for joining us for webcast number 7 of our Technology Trends You Can Put into Practice in 2019 series. Today we'll focus on a topic operators are just beginning to tackle: workplace modernization and cloud-enabled business transformation. Leading our discussion is Mr. Sambit Patra, the Vice President of Cloud-Based Services at Silicus, a cloud-first technology services company focused on enabling digital business transformation initiatives in infrastructure modernization, software-driven business, intelligent analytics, IoT-connected enterprise, and digital workplace productivity. My name is Todd Tweedy. I'll be your moderator for today's webcast and your host for the 6th Annual Motionsoft Technology Summit that will take place in Washington, D.C. on September 16th through 18th in 2019. We have a couple of upcoming webcasts I want to bring your attention to. On Wednesday, December 5th, that's next week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Chris Smith from Steve Nash will be exploring how to provide guidance to beginners in the gym of the future. It's going to be a really exciting session, and lots of registrants have already signed up. I hope you'll be able to join us. Chris is definitely one of the industry luminaries in our space, and I hope you'll be able to attend that session next Wednesday at 2 p.m. The following week, we're going to be jumping over to Raj Sareen, who's with Staiku, and he's going to be exploring, is the fitness industry really making a difference? And really what he's focusing on is reshaping the member experience from a KPI perspective. A fascinating individual with some really unique insights into this industry. I hope you'll join me for that session on Wednesday, December 12th. Let's jump to the Technology Summit just for a moment. And if you've never been, I hope this year you'll sign up for the 6th Annual Motionsoft Technology Summit. This is an event that brings some really smart people together to discuss some of the challenges and opportunities of technology in the fitness industry. Again, the 6th Annual Motionsoft Technology Summit will take place in Washington, D.C. on September 16th through 18th. And in fact, you know what? You can get early bird discounts right now for only $249, which is a pretty good deal for 2.5 days of keynotes, networking, panel sessions, and education presentations from leaders in and around the fitness industry. All right. Before I turn things over to our subject matter expert, I want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded. Your microphones are muted, but you will have the opportunity to ask questions via the chat feature that we'll review momentarily. After your webinar concludes, you'll be sent an email with a link to download the video recording. Now let's take a moment to ensure that everyone's familiar with this webinar control panel and how to ask questions. It's pretty straightforward. If you could just kind of move your mouse down to the questions module inside of that interface, and if you could just type Silicus. Awesome. I think you guys have got it. Thank you so much. Awesome, Mark. Thank you for your little post. I appreciate it. Awesome. And that's how you'll be submitting questions, folks. So the questions that you want to submit to Sambit, just pop them into that little questions interface. And in fact, if you've got one now, go ahead and compose your question, and I'll get to it first once we get to the end of our presentation. But first, I'd like to introduce our speaker. As VP of Cloud First Services, Sambit leads the commercial proliferation of cloud technologies across all of Silicus' customers' geography, as well as industry and technology practices. He's responsible for driving cloud-first customer success in coordination with technology practices and deliver centers and operational leaders. His past experience includes working with leading technology service companies, including Infosys and Sapient. Now it's my privilege to welcome Sambit Patra, who will be discussing our topic for today. Sambit, welcome to the Motionsoft Technology Summit webcast series. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you, Todd. I hope everyone can hear me. So good afternoon, everyone. So as Todd mentioned, we are going to be talking about cloud-enabled business transformation, and we will be focusing on various key areas in this segment. But let me just take a moment to try and kind of introduce myself and what I have been doing over the years. So as Todd mentioned, I do manage the Cloud First Services practice here at Silicus, and we do engage with customers to help them with their digital transformation journey. And over the years, as we have engaged with several customers, This presentation is really a summary of our experience that we have gathered from each of these engagements as to how people go about the digital transformation. So we are going to be primarily talking about how companies are being impacted by the digitalization wave. How do you go about planning your own transformation? What are the key technology components? And most importantly, how cloud plays a role here. And we'll also be talking about some of the tangible outcomes as part of this journey. So moving on, let's first talk about the impact. So how does digitalization impact us? Today's consumers they have embraced technology as part of their daily lives. Wide use of mobile devices, wearable fitness devices, smart home solutions. These are some examples of this trend. So they want to be constantly connected. They have the technology awareness, and they have the desire to have information at their fingertips. So really where it comes down to is these consumers now have come to expect a certain level of digital experience, both as buyers and employees of an organization. So that being the trend, now the enterprises need to live up to these expectations to be successful. So they are constantly looking for ways to provide better user experiences, innovate faster, and create differentiation. Now that said, how does it impact the club industry or health and fitness industry? Really, just like any other industry, the health and fitness industry is not immune to the effects of digitalization. On one side, the early adopters stand to gain significant business advantage. What is also true, on the contrary, is those who resist this change, they definitely risk losing the market share to the other disruptors and early movers. So let's talk about how businesses digitalize. What does this digital transformation involve? So this is accomplished by grounding the organization's future strategy, market differentiation, customer engagement principles, operations, people, and culture in digital technology and the advances that it enables in pursuit of innovation, speed, and agility. And that's a big statement. So let's try and break it down. So let's talk about the 5 different areas of focus that businesses need to be aware of. First and foremost, they need to drive their future strategy with a digital journey in mind. They need to build differentiation or plan on building differentiation in their offering using innovative and unique solutions for their customers. They need to engage customers across multiple digital touch points, and this is all about meeting the customer's expectation for a better and more meaningful digital experience. They need to optimize their operations, and they have to optimize for efficiency, for waste elimination, for speed, reliability, and also to create capacity for future growth. And last but not the least, they need to build a digital workplace that drives innovation and productivity. Now, how do they do all this? These are all planning, and it requires a lot of brainstorming and future strategy. But one key aspect here is they have to use technology effectively to accomplish that. So we all can safely conclude and summarize that technology has become a key enabler in today's world for any digital transformation journey. Now, based on our experience, we are trying to lay out some of the key technology areas that enable digitalization, and I will be looking into each of these areas in detail. But broadly, these areas are around software and DevOps, data analytics and artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, which is a quite exciting area that people are looking into now, the cloud infrastructure, and the digital workplace. So let's talk about each of these with a little more detail. So let's start with digital workplace. So when we say digital workplace, here the focus is primarily building digital solutions that empower your own workforce. So here you're thinking of deploying solutions for unified communication. You are potentially building ability for your employees to engage effectively internally as well as with customers. And you're also bringing in the flexibility to support multiple modes of communication. You could also be focused on developing content collaboration system, or you might be implementing workplace security for data protection and centralized control. Now, all of this is intended to make the workforce productive and efficient. So let's talk about some key examples here. If you're trying to build this collaborative and communication solutions, you can think of 3 or 4 use cases. You could potentially consider implementing a Microsoft Teams solution, which will give you the unified feature around chat, document sharing, and collaboration. You could implement Office 365 for your workforce for emails, SharePoint, and Exchange Online. You could potentially look at EMS, which is an offering from Microsoft for workplace security, which also includes solutions for identity and access management using Azure Active Directory, information and threat protection using Azure Security Solutions, and managing corporate devices and applications using Intune. Now, as you can see that as I talk about these areas and talk about the technology elements, I'm starting to talk about some cloud technologies as they play a role with your transformation journey. And we'll talk about cloud specifically in the subsequent slides. So let's switch to the data analytics and artificial intelligence. Here, the focus is to try and use the data that you have to enhance productivity and to enable better decision making. So how do you do that? The first step here is you have to look at all your applications and systems, and you have to be able to ingest and store the data that gets created in these systems. For example, you might have a club management software, you may have an accounting software, you could potentially have other in-house tools. So and all these applications and systems will be generating and storing data with varying degree of velocity, variety, and volume. So your first challenge will be to try and extract and ingest all this data into a common staging platform. Now, once you're able to do that, you then focus on building an analytics service on top of it. Now, these 2 layers will give you several use cases that you then put to use for business benefits. I mean, these are things like you could potentially develop a self-service BI to empower your end users. You could design solutions to enable data-driven decisions. You could be developing KPIs and dashboards for management. You could just publish data as single source of truth for your entire organization. And you can actually take a big leap in the world of innovation, where you start implementing intelligent analytics using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So all these areas, all these initiatives, they fall under the data analytics and artificial intelligence segment. Now let's talk about software and DevOps here. So typically in running your business, the general approach is to try and find an off-the-shelf software or maybe a SaaS solution that better meets your needs. So in a likely scenario, you're probably using a club management software to run your club operations. But there will be times when you have ideas and offerings in mind with which you can create differentiation in the market as a business. Now, it is great if those solutions are addressed in the off-the-shelf products that you're using. If not, you typically complement your existing product set with custom software development. Now, what are the tenets of these custom software that you develop in today's world? They need to have the innovative user experience. They need to have the aspect where they perform. So there is performance, and they need to scale, because everything in today's world is about create your application once and let it scale due to growing demands. You don't want to redo the application and again based on the changes in the needs. And you also want this application to be reliable and resilient. So these are the tenets that are covered using technologies under software and DevOps paradigm. And last but not the least, the Internet of Things. So Internet of Things really it focuses on solutions that allow you to connect devices to internet so that you can centralize device management. You can continuously collect data from these devices. And what you do with that data, that just opens a whole world of possibilities and opportunities. For example, if I talk about the health and fitness space, there are already several popular health and fitness devices in the market, like Fitbit or Apple Watch, to name a few. The question is, can you think of potential solutions where you integrate these devices into your existing offering and create a consolidated solution? If you think of a hypothetical use case where you have a way to integrate these devices into your solution, start ingesting and exploiting the data that these devices produce. And then you have the ability to create unique solutions which not only include or comprise of your unique offerings, but they are enriched by all these data that you are receiving from these devices, which are already popular and being used by several of your customers. So as an example, imagine if you can develop a fitness planning solution that not only integrates your services and expertise, but also utilizes the personal data that you collect from these devices to create impactful and personalized fitness regimens for your customers. Just an example. Again, what you can do and how many options or how many use cases you can think of really depends on your specific business segment. But as I said, with IoT, the opportunities are really endless because you're bringing devices into the equation to completely transform how and what services you offer to your customers. A popular platform here to develop such solutions is Azure IoT, which gives you a comprehensive platform to integrate your devices and build your analytics components based on the data that you ingest from these devices. Now, there is one key aspect of all these technologies that I'm mentioning across each of these technology areas. An important takeaway from this slide is that all these technologies are available in cloud in a pay-as-you-go model. We'll talk about that a little more. The beauty of these services is, yes, you have to have your strategy, you have to have your game plan in place as to what solutions you want to offer, but the logistics to provision these services or solutions on top of a platform that provides these services is greatly simplified simply because these services could be provisioned in a matter of minutes, which used to be weeks and months in the traditional way of provisioning any solution in the traditional infrastructure. So that is where cloud plays a big role, and we believe that the cloud is the key enabler for each of these technology areas as you identify your innovation goals. So that said, let's talk about cloud. Why cloud? I mean, fine, all these technology areas are there, and you have your goals classified into each of these segments, but why cloud is considered as the common denominator across all these areas? Because of several reasons. First and foremost is the cost efficiency. So in the traditional world, as you think of applications and services that you want to offer to your customer, when it comes to technology, one of the key things is provisioning the infrastructure. And in the traditional sense, you have to make a big initial investment. You have to adopt a CapEx model for your IT to even start provisioning the required infrastructure as you go down this journey to offer any services or any software solutions to your customer. Cloud pretty much changes that upside down. It brings in the flexible pay-as-you-go subscription model where there is no lock-in, there is no initial investment, substantial initial investment. You have an agile platform in any cloud solution where you simply deploy the services and pay for what you use. So it brings that cost efficiency into the factor, which has become the biggest disruptor, at least in the IT space, as far as provisioning infrastructure is concerned. A slight extension to that flexibility is your ability to perform innovation through experimentation. You often take on a journey with hypothesis in mind. You do not necessarily know what exactly the end product is. You want to try various options out before you make a formal investment or come up with a formal business plan. Now, cloud offers you the flexibility where you could create an experimental sandbox for all your innovation ideas. You can pretty much run your proof of concepts, vet it out adequately, and completely dispose of the cloud environment once you're done if the results are not satisfactory. Again, an extension of that flexibility that you have where there is no initial lock-in. You don't necessarily buy and lock into infrastructure that you need. You could be provisioning an end-to-end data warehouse for a couple of days, and if you do your initial vetting out, you're satisfied, you could destroy that without having to pay any penalty. So that's just one small example how it gives you the flexibility to build infrastructure and use services that are available on top of this infrastructure. Now, the third aspect here is the faster time to market. Now, the faster time to market is a general requirement. It's not just about the infrastructure that you provision in cloud, but it's about the ability to churn out innovations and ideas and solutions, put it into something actionable, and actually take it in front of the customer. Now, cloud helps here in a big way because all cloud platforms, all popular cloud platforms, they allow businesses to deploy services and solutions without extensive engineering and logistical nuances. It does eliminate the otherwise traditional aspect of a lot of planning and a lot of logistics that you need to go through, and it speeds up the process to deploy solutions. Yes, you need to take care of developing the solutions, which is a different challenge, but once you're ready, deploying solutions is a piece of cake with cloud. So it does help with the faster time to market goal as you try and deploy your solutions in cloud. Some examples, again, I mean, these are not the only examples, but I'm just trying to give you some food for thought here to just kind of explain how effective and powerful it can be. You can design and deploy an end-to-end virtual network in cloud in a matter of minutes. You can deploy an end-to-end data warehouse in a matter of minutes in cloud. Whereas in a traditional infrastructure space, this will probably take you weeks and months of planning before even you implement the first element of your infrastructure to do anything meaningful. The next thing is reduced complexity and better maintainability. This is kind of implicit with all cloud platforms simply because they do abstract the nuances of managing the low-level infrastructure elements. When you deploy your solutions in cloud, you stop worrying about the underlying hardware, the underlying network components. So your IT operations are heavily simplified. You have now the bandwidth to focus on strategic initiatives rather than looking at the day-to-day operation overhead. Increased security. Over the years, most of the cloud platforms have spent a lot of effort and budget on strengthening their security. So basically now when you deploy applications in cloud, you can do that knowing that the underlying solution has been vetted out for security and has undergone all kinds of audits. Most of the known cloud platforms, for example, Microsoft Azure has 50 plus existing industry-leading security compliance certification, and they actually go through the audit and they renew these certifications every year. So you can deploy your applications knowing that the cloud platform vendor is already taking care of meeting the best practices and do's and don'ts in the security space. As new challenges evolve, as new threats evolve, they are geared to handle those at the platform level. So that has become a big bonus for people who are now trying to deploy solutions in cloud and want to leverage the existing security controls out of the box. The increased availability and resiliency. This is a common requirement for any modern application that you deploy. You want these applications to be reliable. People need to trust that customers need to trust this application. They need to have the confidence that these applications provide services, business services in a consistent manner. And one aspect there is you cannot have disruptions in the application. You cannot, your business cannot suffer if there are disruptions in your data center, in your hardware, in your infrastructure. Now, cloud platform by design gives you an environment where you achieve high availability and resiliency, and you are almost immune to such disruptions because of underlying hardware failure, because of the way the platform is designed, because of the way the engineering is implemented or modernized, but yet abstracted from you. Now, is it a new thing? Probably not. Even in a traditional data center, you can do a whole lot of engineering to accomplish the same goal. But with cloud, you get that out of the box. You almost have to do zero or minimal engineering to accomplish that. On similar lines, most of the cloud platforms give you the ability to scale. Scalability is an important factor as you venture into new initiatives and new solutions for your customers and your workforce, simply because you always start with an hypothesis, with an idea. You may not have the best possible vision on how the demand grows. So you always want to start with an idea, but with the conviction that if tomorrow the traffic grows, if the demand grows, I can still have my application up and running and still meet the SLAs that I have set forth. And with cloud, again, there are existing engineering inbuilt into cloud platforms where you could accomplish these objectives without necessarily having to rewrite your application or redeploy your application every time there is a growth in demand and customer base. So these are some of the significant advantages that you enjoy out of the box as you move to cloud for any of your business transformation use cases. So let's talk about the digital journey and what does it look like. So there are typically 3 different stages as you plan out your digital journey. You always have to go through a brainstorming phase where you strategize, where you come up with. So basically, this is where you connect business goals with how technology can help you get there, and that needs to be well articulated, well vetted out before you actually take on the journey. And in this phase, you also focus on blueprinting your entire transformation life cycle. You need to identify potential pitfalls, any risks and issues, and you need to vet that out before even you start making significant investment in terms of time and money and resources. You then move into an execute phase, and this is where you actually start deploying solutions in cloud, but without causing much disruption. The goal here is you transform, but with minimal disruption. You start harvesting the benefit of cloud. At the same time, you develop a familiarity with what it takes to deploying solutions in cloud. What does it take to manage these solutions? What benefits does the cloud bring? These are all theoretical as you keep hearing about it, but during the execution phase, you actually get familiar with that process. Now, in the optimized phase, you start focusing on leveraging the true power of cloud. This is where yes, there may be some disruption, but this is where you truly bring some innovative solutions to differentiate your offering, both to your clients and to your workforce. So what we have presented here is an approach depicting a common yet an important set of initiatives in various technology areas. By no means this is a comprehensive matrix. We're just trying to present a common layout, and I'll talk through that here a little bit. So let's talk about each of the technology areas. If we start with workplace, so this is where, as I mentioned earlier, your focus is designing and developing solutions for your existing workforce. So during the strategy phase, you'll probably be doing a lot of blueprinting for how you want to build out your collaborative solutions, how you want to build your unified communication solutions. But at the same time, you could take care of some low-hanging fruits. I mean, what we have seen most customers do is, even during the very initial phases, they take care of obvious things like moving their emails to something like Office 365 Exchange Online, because these are low-hanging fruits where you accomplish some of the transformation goals without much effort, without taking on a lot of risk. So So you do some transformations here as it comes to workplace, like moving your emails, but you do a lot of planning and blueprinting in trying to design your plan and goals for building the communication and collaborative solutions. As you move to the execution phase, you now start implementing solutions, and these will be solutions for your workforce. So potentially you could be implementing something like a Microsoft Teams solution for unified communication among your employees. You could be implementing or even migrating to a SharePoint online solution, which is for content collaboration and workflow management. Now, as you optimize, you are actually taking these solutions to the next level. You are trying to accomplish completely differentiated and modernized customer experience. So you start implementing things like chatbots or artificial intelligence to implement predictive analytics and bring in intelligence to each of these collaboration platforms, which go a long way in creating a unique and very satisfying experience both for your customers and for your employees. Let's talk about the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure area. So as you strategize in this phase, you start by blueprinting what your infrastructure footprint is, where it is deployed, what are the nuances, what kind of CapEx or OpEx model that you already have. You try to identify the cost benefits and the other tangible benefits that the cloud environment might bring you. And once you have that cost analysis and the benefit analysis done during the execution phase, you actually start moving your infrastructure elements to cloud. And there are, no matter which cloud platform that you choose, they all have significantly improved options and tools and processes in place to seamlessly start migrating your existing infrastructure without causing a lot of disruption. But when you start optimizing this, you try to make a difference. It is fine to take your infrastructure to cloud, start saving cost, achieve better resilience and high availability and reliability. But you could further optimize. You can identify potential partners or vendors who could help you with the tactical aspect of running your IT infrastructure in cloud. So you could look for a potential IT infrastructure managed service partner. And because the management overhead is greatly minimized, you could have a separate managed services team run your IT infrastructure operations while your IT team focuses on the strategic aspect of where your business is heading and what IT needs to do to meet those goals. Let's talk about data analytics and artificial intelligence. Once again, during the strategy phase, you start understanding and identifying potential opportunities with your data. It is important to understand what data elements that you have, how is it important to your business, and roughly how you can leverage those data. Because it's one thing to say that I have all these data elements, but you need to have some hypothesis in mind as to how I can leverage that, how I can analyze that to come up with some actionable insights. Everybody likes a report, everybody likes a dashboard, but we always need to focus on how we are improvising or making the business processes more and more efficient with those data analytics. So once you map out your blueprint around that, during the execution phase, you start building your analytics platform in cloud. You start building the data reporting and the visualization use cases where you make these data and the corresponding analytics elements available to the customers, which may be your internal users or even your end customers. And as you move forward, when you optimize it, you start creating differentiation there by implementing AI and machine learning driven analytics. This is where you take a giant step into the world of innovation, where you say that, fine, I have all these traditional analytics, but let me try and look for patterns in my data. Let me try and make some intelligent decisions based on all the data that I have gathered over several years. And you can implement some of these very advanced analytical concepts to accomplish that during the optimized phase. Now, Internet of Things, as I briefly mentioned earlier, this itself is quite innovative. This is a very exciting area at this point. It is new to many people, but we are seeing growing adoption simply because the value that it brings in. So we generally see that people take on this journey as a way to innovate new ideas and come up with new offerings around their device-related data. But you could very well already have some existing solutions, in which case you'll probably try and take it to the cloud and then convert it into a formal IoT-based solution. But in many cases, we see that people implement IoT solution as a way to create differentiation in their offering. So this is where you, if I talk about fitness space, you could potentially look at integrating third-party wearables or applications for better customer engagement. And you could then start creating solutions which will give you many opportunities, including potentially doing upsells for some of your services. So imagine if you're integrating all your customers' data around what kind of workout that they're doing, along with data that comes from all their fitness devices. You could be profiling the customer's fitness goals and current state of things, and based on that, you could make decisions and recommendations for what the customer needs going forward. So that gives you a lot of upsell opportunities on what solutions that you can advertise to the customer. Another example here is intelligent equipment management. This relates more to the fitness equipment. Probably the manufacturers of the equipment have already adopted this model where they internet enable these equipment so that you already get the data for further analytics. So you might have seen the trend here where these are not just equipment sitting at a club. These are actually powerful devices where you get meaningful data for all your customers' workout history. Software and DevOps, as I said, the general approach here is to try and use something that is off the shelf to meet the business needs. But if you have areas where you want to create differentiation, you have innovative ideas and very specific solutions that you want to make available to your customers, you can potentially think of building complementary software solutions on top of your existing club management software. Examples are you could be building mobile apps for your customers where they could be signing up for classes, they can do their workout tracking. There are many different use cases. And these are all examples where if you don't have something existing in your club management software, you can potentially complement that by building all these custom applications. How you optimize that is by enriching the customer experience end of the day. You start implementing IoT-based decision matrix. You start implementing things like chatbot-driven customer engagement experience, and basically take your software to the next level in terms of how these softwares are used to engage with your customers. So again, like I said, this is a very, very rough and generic layout of different sample use cases. By no means this is comprehensive. We fully acknowledge that every business has something unique to offer. So the matrix might look different to each business, but we wanted to present just a standard thought process here as to what are the different use cases that people typically take on under each of these technology areas. One last thing that I wanted to cover before we jump into Q&A is the tangible business outcomes. Now, just with any strategy or any journey that you take on, it is important for you to proactively identify what your goal is and how you can measure success. So as you take on the digital transformation journey, it is important for you to identify what outcome you're expecting at the end of the day. Now, these outcomes can be of different types. These could be around optimizing your business processes, or it could be around transforming your business. So your simple goal may be, I just want to increase revenue, or I want to improve margins. Or you can say that, no, I want to do X number of things so that I can create a completely new revenue stream. Each of these are valid goals, but it is important to identify the goals and have a way to measure this as you exit the strategy phase and get into the execute and optimize phase, because that's the only way you'll know how effective you have been and if you need to change course, because it's all about being agile with your hypotheses and your ideas. This is not at all a rigid journey where you start with something and either you have to finish or you're nowhere. People constantly change their goals, their objectives, how they want to go about transforming their business. But all we are saying is it is important to identify what factors are important to you as the eventual outcome and how do you measure those along the process. I think with that, let me take a pause here and we can open the forum up for questions.
Awesome. Sandeep, that was fantastic. It was actually funny. I was starting to take notes and then I realized, oh, hey, we're recording this. I can come back and follow up in a second. I thought the matrix was really phenomenal. But hey, let me turn to our attendees. Hey, this is your chance to talk to an expert who's been doing cloud transformations for a while. In fact, he has 15 years experience in the health and fitness industry specifically. So let me give you a moment here to compose your questions to Sandeep. And while our attendees are doing that, Sandeep, let me ask you, you've been in this space for many, many years. Where are you seeing club operators kind of get stuck in that matrix? Is it more on the strategizing part or is it more on the execution phase once you begin that component of that transformation?
Great question, Todd. I think I would actually say the common pattern that we have seen is where people start executing some of their ideas without having a valid blueprint. And that is why I wanted to stress upon the goals. As you take on this journey, it is always important for you to take a step back and identify what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, fine, I want to implement Office 365. I want to use Microsoft Teams. But what's your outcome? How are you trying to improve your business processes? Can you quantify that? I think many people skip that, and it's understood. I mean, technology is evolving so fast. It's exciting. People get really inclined towards seeing something in action. But I think where many people make mistake, and they quickly learn from that mistake, is they don't do enough blueprinting in the beginning. So it is important for any business to focus on the strategy and actually have a very defined and well-articulated blueprint with all the risks and goals before you really take any significant step. And that's, if I can probably point out one big pattern that we have seen, and that's really the item. Many times we engage with business where they have already tried to do something and they have run into challenges, and we simply ask them to take a step back. We help them, we work with them, but we encourage them to have their strategy in place before they go about doing any transformation.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, attendees, this is your opportunity to ask questions to Sandeep and get some expert feedback on how to look at cloud-enabled business transformation. And with that, Sandeep, I'm curious, you talk to an operator and you hint that there's an opportunity for cost savings. People start to get a little more interested in whether it's cheaper computing or storage capabilities or even better agility for that matter. How is this cloud-enabled transformation disrupting IT organizations within the fitness industry?
So the biggest aspect here is there is a big push on understanding what is important for you and not get stuck with the mundane activities. So where I think IT is seeing a lot of challenge, and these are all positive challenges, is in the traditional world, it was all about how can I keep the lights on for my environment. Now cloud brings that to you by default. So the biggest shift, which is initially seen as a challenge, but immediately people realize that this is actually a challenge for the good, is cloud gives you that I want to keep the lights on by default. So let me not worry about whether my business is up and running, whether my systems are up and running. Let me actually worry about how fast I can evolve, how fast I can innovate, so that I can compete with other businesses. So IT is pushed to think strategic and not necessarily spend a lot of time keeping the lights on. Cloud is forcing them to do that, which is actually for the good. I mean, all the IT teams that I've worked with although they get overwhelmed in the very beginning, they actually start appreciating the value very soon because they see the importance of thinking strategy and not necessarily being completely tactical about how to keep things up and running.
I have a question for you, Sandeep, from Brian, who wants to focus on software and DevOps. And he's asking, from your experience in terms of member benefits, what are clubs doing right now, and what tips do you have for us? Thanks, Brian.
And this question is around DevOps?
Yes, software and DevOps.
Oh. Okay, great. So the few things that I can tell you here is the whole concept of software and DevOps, it revolves around what kind of custom solutions that you're trying to offer to your customers. So first of all, you have to have a plan or a goal in mind that these are the unique solutions that I want to take to the market because I want to differentiate myself. Now, once you do that, the biggest challenge that you're faced with is being agile about it. If you are, let's say, a club software manufacturer, you have probably hundreds of clubs using your software, and each of them have slightly different needs. So you start out with something in mind, saying, I will build X, Y, and Z, and very soon you realize that you are actually building something else, and truly because the market demands something else. Now that is where DevOps comes in, and that's where it helps you. And what I have seen is, yes, it is in the beginning, it's a big learning curve. If you have an application development team through your own internal staff or through vendors, one of the biggest challenges to take on that initial investment, because DevOps it's not a miracle. It's not that it's wrong to think that you adopt the DevOps principles and you will start seeing benefits on day 2, day 3, day 10, even day 30 for that matter. DevOps is all about taking on all the problematic elements on a day-to-day basis and taking it on ahead of the game so that you don't start building a solution that can never change and that is difficult to change. So there is always an initial reluctance, there are always initial challenges, and we have seen that is where many people tend to reject the idea, saying, oh, I'm taking on too many things, it's probably not going to give me a lot of benefits. But if you have a plan in mind that, okay, no matter what happens next 6 months, next 1 year, I want to improvise my release process, my application release cycles, and I want to follow these 5 or 6 principles of DevOps. And that it's not rigid. You don't have to use, there is no specific 10 rules under DevOps. It's just about being agile about how you build and release your application and how much you can automate that. So if you take on some of those principles as it applies to your situation and have the patience to see it end to end and go through several iterations, you actually start building repeatable practices. One example I can give you, and then that I think will try and help explain this a little better, is if you try and automate your testing, which is a key aspect during any custom software development. It comes with a big initial overhead. You have to start automating, you have to start doing a lot of initial work to even go about automating your test cases. But a year down the line, you realize all of a sudden that all the work that I did throughout the year for test automation is fully reusable because this is automated, this is there, I can run it anytime. I don't need testers to sit there and have a go at the screen day in, day out. So it is taking the pain in the beginning and be disciplined about it so that you can start reaping the benefits a few months down the line. We just have to have the patience. And that's where we do see some struggles, but I think there is wider adoption now, especially in the last year or two.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian and Sandeep. That was a good overview. I'm curious, where should our attendees go to get some more information on getting started with their own transformation initiatives?
We can definitely share some links and some contacts with you, Todd, and you can definitely share those with the attendees. We have specific groups here that can help our clients, and there are some open links that I'll share with you, which will be good information for people to start reading up on just other customer experiences and some best practices. So there are a lot of materials. I'll share some of it with some contact details, and attendees can definitely leverage that.
Awesome. Well, with that, I can't thank you enough for joining us today and taking some time just to share your expertise around cloud-enabled business transformation. And I hope folks will take a look at silicus.com to learn more about getting started with a cloud transformation initiative. And don't forget, September 16th through 18th in Washington, D.C., the 6th annual Motionsoft Technology Summit. I hope you'll join us then. Hey, our next session is next Wednesday at 2 o'clock with Chris Smith from Steve Nash Clubs. And he's going to get into how to guide new members in kind of the future world of gym experiences. I hope you'll join us then. And again, have a great day. Thank you so much. Sandeep, it was a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.